The family vacation that ended in massacre. It was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime. A family getaway to the mountains of Colorado, fresh air, scenic drives, and quiet nights by the fire. But within 48 hours of arrival, what began as a dream vacation descended into a nightmare of blood, betrayal, and unanswered questions. By the end of that week, 4 members of the Andrews family would be found brutally murdered inside their cabin. And the only survivor? A single figure whose story would fracture the community and shock the nation. This is the story of the family vacation that ended in massacre. The Andrews family was what many described as the heart of suburban Texas. David Andrews, 46, was a respected high school principal. His wife, Margaret, 44, taught Sunday school at the local church. Together, they had built a reputation for kindness and integrity. Their children, 15-year-old Emily and 12-year-old Noah, were deeply loved in their community. Emily was a quiet but gifted pianist, while Noah was energetic, always chasing after his friends with a football in hand. Their neighbors recalled them as the perfect American family, the kind people envied, not out of jealousy, but admiration. That summer, David surprised his family with a trip to Colorado. They had rented a secluded cabin just outside Estes Park. It was to be a week of hikes, board games, and bonding time before the rush of school returned. But the peace they sought would never come. On the second night of their trip, Margaret posted a photo on Facebook, the 4 of them smiling around a fire pit, mugs of hot chocolate in their hands. Friends liked and commented, unaware it would be the last picture of the family alive together. The next morning, local authorities received a frantic 911 call from a neighboring cabin. A man reported hearing screams, blood-curdling, desperate screams, coming from the Andrews rental. By the time deputies arrived, it was too late. The cabin door was ajar. Inside, the air was heavy with the smell of smoke and iron. The living room told the first story: shattered mugs, overturned chairs, and streaks of blood across the hardwood floor. David Andrews was found near the fireplace, a gunshot wound to his chest. Margaret lay in the kitchen, brutally stabbed multiple times. Upstairs, Emily's room was splattered with blood. She had been attacked in her sleep. Noah's body was discovered near the bathroom. He had tried to run. The small mountain town of Estes Park had never seen anything like it. The brutality was staggering. But one detail stood out: not everyone was dead. Downstairs, crouched in a corner of the basement, deputies found 19-year-old Jason, David's nephew, who had joined the trip at the last minute. Shaking, incoherent, and covered in blood, Jason whispered just 4 words. "It wasn't me." News spread quickly. The Andrews family was gone, and the only surviving witness was their own relative. In Texas, the family's church held vigils that drew hundreds. Friends spoke through tears, remembering Margaret's gentle nature and David's booming laugh. The police, meanwhile, had to move fast. Sheriff Daniels of Larimer County stood before cameras, his face grim. "We are treating this as a homicide investigation. At this time, we cannot rule out any possibilities." But the town whispered. If Jason hadn't done it, then who had? Detectives began piecing together the events of that night. Jason claimed he had gone to bed early in the basement. He awoke to screaming and the sounds of gunshots upstairs. Terrified, he said he hid in the dark, afraid the killer would come for him next. But investigators noticed problems with his story. His hands were smeared with blood, not just on the surface but under his fingernails. His shirt was torn. And his version of events changed in small but significant ways during questioning. Then came the autopsy reports. David had been shot with a .38 revolver, but none was found in the house. Margaret's stab wounds suggested frenzied rage, not a calculated attack. Emily and Noah's injuries revealed they had been attacked by surprise. Detectives began to wonder, was this a single killer, or something far more complicated? Just as suspicion around Jason grew, a new piece of evidence turned everything upside down. Police recovered a set of muddy boot prints leading away from the cabin into the woods. They were larger than Jason's, and DNA swabs from a cigarette butt nearby pointed to an unknown male. Someone else had been there that night. For weeks, investigators searched the forest, combed through rental agreements, and canvassed local stores. That's when another revelation emerged. 2 weeks before the vacation, David Andrews had taken out a substantial life insurance policy, one that listed Jason as a secondary beneficiary. The discovery left investigators stunned. Was this coincidence? Or motive? The massacre shook the entire region. Schools in Texas held memorial services. Vigils lit up neighborhoods where Emily's piano once filled the air. The Andrews Church raised funds for the funerals, but no amount of candles or prayers could erase the horror. Meanwhile, Jason remained in custody, awaiting further investigation. He proclaimed his innocence, insisting the boot prints proved someone else was responsible. But detectives pressed harder. If Jason didn't do it, why was he covered in blood? Why were his fingerprints found on the knife that killed Margaret? And why had David trusted him enough to include him in a life insurance plan weeks before their deaths? As authorities prepared charges, a chilling possibility emerged. What if the Andrews family had been targeted not by one person, but by a network of betrayal and greed that reached far deeper than anyone imagined? And then, just days before the trial, investigators uncovered a piece of evidence hidden inside the cabin itself. A blood-stained journal belonging to Emily, with a final entry written the night before her death. In it, she described overhearing an argument, one that hinted the family's killer might not have been Jason at all. Emily's final entry was dated the night before the killings. Her words were shaky, hurried, as though she'd been writing in secret. "I don't like the way Dad and Jason argue. It scares Noah. They talk about money, and something about insurance. Mom tried to calm them down, but Dad kept saying he knew the truth. I don't want to be here right now. I wish we could go home." The chilling note raised disturbing questions. What did David know? And why was Jason, barely 19, embroiled in heated conversations about life insurance with his uncle? Jason's trial drew national attention. Media outlets descended on the small Colorado town, broadcasting every update. Inside the courtroom, prosecutors painted him as a manipulative young man who snapped under pressure, killing his family to gain financially from his uncle's policy. They highlighted the blood under his fingernails, the fingerprints on the knife, and his shifting timeline. The district attorney thundered. This was not a random act of violence. This was a calculated betrayal from within the family itself. But Jason's defense told a different story. They emphasized the muddy boot prints, the cigarette butt found near the cabin, and Emily's diary entry suggesting tensions that had nothing to do with Jason alone. His lawyer leaned toward the jury and asked, if Jason wanted them dead, why would he leave behind evidence pointing to someone else? The case divided the Andrews hometown in Texas. Some saw Jason as a cold-blooded killer, a wolf hiding in sheep's clothing. Others believed he was a scapegoat, a traumatized teenager unfairly blamed because the real killer had vanished into the woods. Margaret's sister, standing outside the courthouse, sobbed into cameras. My nephew didn't do this. He loved Emily and Noah like his own brother and sister. There's someone else out there. And they're still free. But Emily and Noah's classmates held vigils demanding justice, holding signs that read, Protect our children. For them, Jason was the monster who had taken their friends away. Midway through the trial, investigators quietly pursued a lead tied to the cigarette butt. DNA testing revealed it belonged not to Jason, nor to David, but to an unknown male with a criminal record in another state, Wyoming. The man's name, Christopher Hale. A drifter with a violent history, including burglary and aggravated assault. And weeks before the murders, Hale had been spotted loitering near the same rental cabins in Estes Park. This revelation rocked the case. If Hale was present at the cabin that night, then Jason might not have been the sole, or even the primary killer. But before the defense could capitalize on this discovery, prosecutors dropped a bombshell: security camera footage from a small gas station 10 miles from the cabin. The grainy videos show Jason and Christopher Hale together 2 days before the murders. They weren't strangers. They were talking, laughing, and buying alcohol. The courtroom gasped. Prosecutors seized on the footage. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Jason Andrews wasn't a victim. He had an accomplice. Jason's defense scrambled. He admitted meeting Hale but claimed it was chance. He said Hale approached him, offered him alcohol, and he never saw him again. But to the jury, the footage painted a damning picture. And then came the forensic bomb. The blood on Jason's shirt contained not only traces of his family's DNA but also an unidentified profile. One later matched to Hale. This meant one terrifying possibility: Jason and Hale were both inside that cabin. But just when prosecutors thought the case was locked, investigators uncovered one final piece of evidence hidden inside a safe in David Andrews' car. A folder marked "Confidential." Inside were documents that revealed David had been in deep financial trouble, debts he had hidden from his family, debts tied to dangerous people. Among the papers was a handwritten note. A threat. 5 words that changed the case forever. "Your family will pay first." The courtroom froze. The jury sat in stunned silence. Had the Andrews family been murdered as part of a larger vendetta? Was Jason just a pawn caught in a brutal cycle of debt and revenge? Or was he still the mastermind, pulling the strings with Hale as his accomplice? The truth was about to come out, but not before another shocking twist no one saw coming. The massacre of the Andrews family left a trail of grief, suspicion, and unanswered questions. Was Jason a killer? A victim? Or something far more complicated? Do you think Jason was a mastermind working with Hale, or was he a scared teenager dragged into something far beyond his control?